Oh, you blacked out who's row one and who's
Of
whose
oh,
rankings are whose.
son of
It's
a gun.
I think looking at it, it's
It
Matt,
is.
Dennis.
Golly. Well, it's a great way to start the stream. I'll work on that while you guys are talking about how great your fourths are going to be. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. I'm going to work on this. It's been a beautiful day. I'm just continually messing things up. So, how are you two doing today?
I'm doing great. Went and painted my mom's porch, so I got some good sun points banked up for the next little bit. You know, the wife is out in the pool that I let her buy with her money. So I didn't let her buy it, but she's out there in the pool having some fun and relaxing. So I got some wife points. So now here we are.
Very nice. Very nice. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I was. I'm usually off on Fridays now, so we kind of off hanging out. Uh, for reasons surpassing understanding, I woke up at 5:30 and decided it was time to write. So I've been doing that. Took a little power nap. Now just trying to hang out and stay cool. This weekend we're supposed to get some storms, which will hopefully knock it down. Because by the middle of next week, they're saying it's going to be 97 here. And for somebody who doesn't have air conditioning in their house, that was not a prospect that left me feeling joy on the inside.
Wow. So Matt's coming to us from the 1950s.
Well, half of Colorado Springs houses in the older areas don't have weren't built with central air. And when we first moved here, they were like, well, it only is hot for like 2 weeks out of the year, and you don't really need it. That has not been my experience the last few summers, and this one has just been brutal. We started having 90-degree days in May, so I hope I'm still with you by the time football returns.
Yeah.
Matt was so despondent, he froze right up.
Yeah. It's usually me that does the freezing.
It was the thought of me having to sit here being hot. Well, we could take this moment at the beginning while we're waiting for Matt to come back and let people know if you want a shot at being in our redraft listener league, you can send me a DM on Twitter at Nighthawk7734 with your guess of how many hot dogs America's son, Joey Chestnut, will be putting down tomorrow on the 4th of July as the most important patriotic event in our country's history returns, the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest.
Yeah, Joey's, pun intended, quite the animal.
I know my wife doesn't understand my fascination, but I watch it every year. This year's going to be a little weird, no crowd, and I guess they're not going to be out on, the boardwalk out there. They're going to be like in some gym somewhere. I'm not sure. As my wife pointed out, how does that make it better? Wouldn't they be more protected from the virus if they were outside? Which that tracks for me, but we'll see.
All right. Let's see if we can figure this out now, because my goodness, this has just been fun. I get my computer back, and I'm just having all kinds of issues today, and this is not making me happy. I assume you guys can still see me. Yes, no issues there.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, there we go. I was trying to ban other Matt Bruning and the share screen here from the studio for a minute. So we're going to talk running backs here eventually once I can get this to work. It's just been a wonderful start to all of this stuff. So, yes, what I was saying, I don't know when I cut out, is this the same with my parents? They have individual air-conditioned units at their house, which I will be up there in just a couple weeks. So I am not really looking forward to going from 100-plus degrees to just 97 degrees. Was hoping for a little bit better weather going up to Colorado.
Hopefully it'll drop down. If we get into the monsoon flow here, it gets to be like mid to upper 80s in the afternoon. Then the thunderstorm sweeps over, drops 20 minutes of rain, and all of a sudden you're in the 60s, and it's glorious.
That is what I am looking forward to. At least I'm hoping when I'm up there. So we got our running back ranks up here on the board today. We are going to talk about ranks 36 through 20 if we have time. If not, we'll at least go through 36 through 24. We've got our bottom 4 guys on here for all of us, 37 through 40 guys that we just, at least for me, I couldn't leave them off the rankings. It was so hard, but I couldn't find a way to move them up, but I didn't want to leave them off because I think all these guys are so close for me. So it's J.K. Dobbins, James White, Tevin Coleman, and Darrell Henderson. I think all 4 obviously can do a lot for fantasy this year. I actually thought, I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this. I feel like the running back position is deeper than I thought it was going to be when I was going through the ranks. We always talk about how there's those elite guys at the top, but a lot of the guys after that I thought were really kind of all grouped in the same tier. So what are your guys' thoughts on the running backs, and then talk about the 4 guys you have there through 37 through 40?
Yeah, I think it ends up being you have a long stretch from maybe 14 through about 35 that on a week-to-week basis could have a pretty wide range of outcomes. You know, they could completely flip in order just about on any given week. You know, that was where I have J.K. Dobbins at 40, but it wouldn't surprise me if he takes over that job halfway through the season and puts up a great half a season and finishes as RB22. Sony Michel, you know, when I got to looking down, one of the considerations I had was, does Cam vulture some touchdowns from him? We know Sony's not going to catch passes. For somebody who was the pass receiving back in college, they just, you know, they're grinding him. He's a 2-down grinder, and that's what they're using him for. But a lot of his production was slated to come from touchdowns, and if Cam takes 4 or 6 touchdowns from him, you know, all of a sudden he drops way down. Howard and Breda, they had to be close. I don't know what's coming. They have defined roles, but how good is that Miami offense really going to be? How quickly is it going to take a step up? And it's the same thing with Damian Williams. I do have Swift inside my top 36, but you know, Damian Williams isn't just going to go away. You know, same with Kerryon Johnson and Marlon Mack, all guys that I have a little bit lower outside of this top 40. But those guys aren't just going to stop competing.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at with running backs too. I think one of the reasons it probably feels deeper and a little bit tougher is with the off season we've had. You don't entirely know what to expect of these rookie running backs, most of whom we like, but came into potential share situations. What is the split going to be, especially early in the season? And I think the thing we don't like to think about and you can't forecast for, but seems to be a reality, is the potential for injuries, especially, you know, running backs in particular. You get like a nicked up ankle or a hamstring or a quad or something that can have a real detriment on what you're able to do. And we don't even know, you know, we may not even know going into the regular season what it looks like. The NFL already announced they're cutting down to 2 preseason games. The NFL Players Association came out today and said they'd prefer 0 preseason games, just go right into the season. There's just so many more unknowns, and we haven't gotten to watch these guys play and work out. We don't know what group workouts they're doing on the side. So, you know, that's probably true, especially of my last 4, Tevin Coleman, Duke Johnson, Dobbins, and Michelle. I mean, you could see those guys vault up. It really depends on what their teams do. Those are all guys that have other guys they're potentially competing with, or in the case of Michelle, we don't even know what the Patriots offense is going to be. You know, is it going to look like it did before? Who's to say?
Yeah, I'm a little bit higher on him than you two are. I do think having Cam there is going to help him a little bit. I still think that he's going to get a lot more rushing yards. I mean, I guess for me, we flip-flopped. I have James White a little bit lower. You guys have him both higher, and then I have Sony Michel, obviously. So we just kind of flip-flopped, I guess, on our thought process. I don't think James White is going to be quite as used the way Christian McCaffrey was there in Carolina with the Turners, and I think it's going to be more of a Sony Michel. I think having Cam is actually going to help him some because those defenses can't necessarily key in on Sony, and I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of don't have Cam running in every time, though I won't lie, a little bit worried about that with Cam, you know, vulturing some touchdowns from Sony Michel. But let's kick it off with 36. I've got Ronald Jones. I just think him and Keyshawn are going to hurt each other a little bit. I love both of them. I love Jones and Keyshawn. Anybody who's been listening, obviously, for a while knows that I've been talking up both of them as much as I can. But I honestly think with Arians and the way he's going to want to throw the ball, I'm sure Brady's going to want to run some. But I just think with Ronald Jones, Keyshawn, they're going to limit how much they run. Both of them, I think, are going to cannibalize each other in the receiving game as well. So in the end, I think both of them are going to be pretty low. I don't have either one of them very high, and it hurt my heart very much to put those guys as low as I did. But I
banged the drum for Ronald Jones all off season, and it turns out you're lower than either of the rest of us.
I know it was. I kept trying to find somewhere to move him up, and I couldn't. I was like, I can't. Like, this is just where he's going to be for me. So
hashtag analysis.
Yes, exactly. All right, so Matt, we'll let you go next. Latavius Murray with the Saints.
Yeah, I have Latavius here. Obviously, we've seen in that Saints system, if Kamara gets dinged up and misses time, Murray has some really explosive games, but he's actually had value on his own. They use him to mix it in as a runner and a receiver. He actually had a pretty good season last year. So low-end RB3 feels like the right spot with some potential upside.
I like Murray. He didn't make my top 40. I just feel like this year is going to be a big Kamara year, and Murray is going to be much more of a complementary piece as opposed to a 1B kind of back. So it's, and that game is built, that team, their offense is built around throwing the ball. So while I like Murray, I just couldn't find anybody to move down to get him in there. For my 36, I went with Matt Breida down in Miami. I touched on Jordan Howard at 38. I feel like that's going to be a pretty even split between those two guys. And I could easily see it flip-flopping the other way if the Dolphins end up moving the ball well. And, if Jordan Howard scored 12 touchdowns this year, it wouldn't surprise me one bit. But I feel like Breida is a competent runner and a really good pass catcher, and it wouldn't surprise me if Breida caught 60 or 70 passes this year.
Yeah, I think for me, the drawback for him has always been, can he stay on the field long enough? Because I always loved him when he was with the 49ers too, and you'd have a couple of great games and then questionable and kind of cycled out. It's hard to tell with Miami. Nothing really would surprise me there.
Yeah, I'm a little bit higher on him just because of what you were just mentioning there with Breida. I've got him. I have him and Howard close to like Jones, Keyshawn, a bunch of these guys actually that are splitting backfields. I don't have much separating them, surprisingly enough. So let's check out our next couple guys. We'll let Dennis go first. So that didn't work at all as well as I wanted to. My goodness, man, I just messed this all up. This is ridiculous. All right, well, everybody's going to see.
That was quite a jump.
This is so messed up. I'm just gonna go all the way down. We're rolling with it. I don't even care anymore. So Dennis at 35.
Good thing you had the day off work so you could rest.
Oh, good night. This has been ridiculous. This is just embarrassing. One of these days I'm gonna get this right. All right, so let's just focus in on. So you've got
Keyshawn Vaughn at 35.
Yeah.
And as you can see by my rankings there, I've got Ronald Jones at 32. So again, it's another one of those split backfields that I think is going to be split pretty evenly. It wouldn't surprise me either way if one of them took charge of that backfield and put up 65, 70% of the touches. But going into the season, I feel like it'll be a 60-40 split to start out with Jones getting the majority of the touches. And then by the end of the season, I'm not going to be surprised one bit if it's the other way around, just because I think, I'm not that I'm super sold on Vaughn, but I'm definitely not sold on Jones long term. I think this is the year that Jones has to prove himself. If he can come in and block, run efficiently, see the hole, and maybe take charge of that offense, it could be the season that propels him to 2 or 3 years worth of top level fantasy relevance. but I'm not rolling my dice on it just yet.
So you had Jones at 32 and Vaughn at 35.
Yep.
Who'd you have in between?
I had Darius Geis at 34 and Tariq Cohen at 33. I just don't know I don't know what I want to do with that Washington backfield.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to play what if scenarios with injuries, but it's hard not to with Darius Geis and his first couple seasons of injury woes. That, and it seemed like, Washington did with running backs what Chicago did with tight ends. If there was one out there floating around, they signed him.
I know that was, I was working on for the Fantasy Life blog, the preview for Washington. I feel like that was the approach that they took with all three skill positions. Like, if we collect enough guys, we'll find two that can play. But I mean, you're looking at their backfield. You want to like Geis and Antonio Gibson, but Bryce Love is there. We still don't know what can he do. Peterson, Peyton Barber, J.D. McKissick. There's somebody else I'm forgetting too. When I was looking at their roster, you figure they're not all going to make it, and injuries will probably play a factor there. But so I think for mine, I was almost the same way that you are with Tampa Bay with me with the Rams. I have Akers in at 35. 35 reading the chart, and then I'm pretty sure I have Darrell Henderson up at 32. So it's kind of the same way that you have the Buccaneers backs in there. I have the Rams backs in there. I feel like there's going to be some kind of a split, and I still want to believe in Henderson, I guess. And then in between, you and I had Tariq Cohen in the same place at 33, but then I have Jordan Howard. When I was looking at Miami, it seemed like, what they were missing and what they might be trying to do is kind of have that grinding running back. If you remember Miami last year, their leading rusher was Ryan Fitzpatrick with 243 yards, 4 TDs. So they didn't really have much in the way of a running back. I thought it was a decent fit for Jordan Howard to kind of pound out there, because if Fitzmagic starts the season, which seems kind of likely, and plays quite a bit, he seems to like to go downfield more with passing than dumping off to running backs.
Yeah, so that's why I have Breida there. I'll be interested to see if Fitz dumps off to him. I still like him. I think Breida's a really good runner. That's why I have him at 35. As you guys can see, I've got Vaughn at 34. Kind of agree with everything Dennis was just saying. And then I really don't have Howard much higher, which you have there. Did you touch on Cam Akers at all there, Matt, with him being 35 for you?
Yeah, I just talked about the Rams split with him and Henderson, who I have I have a couple slots ahead.
Yeah. Do you have Henderson on yours, Dennis? I didn't.
No, he's down at 46. I feel like Henderson is going to have a couple pop games, and he's going to have be the change of pace guy. Malcolm Brown there, who is old reliable, for lack of a better term. I think it's Akers' backfield. So I see it as like a 55, 35, 20 kind of backfield.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm more 60-40. So I don't have Akers much higher than Matt does. Henderson I put in my 40 just because I think he can get a little bit more fantasy relevance here. So I'm a little bit higher on him, obviously, than Dennis is, and Matt is the highest on him over all of us. So that's where I have Cam Akers there at 33. Jordan Howard. So as I said, not much difference between him and Matt Breida for me. I think he's going to get a couple more touchdowns over Matt Breida. But I think Breida is going to bring in those receptions and rushing yards, which is what is going to keep him still very fantasy relevant. Akers, I'm kind of with you, Matt. I think it's going to be more of a split backfield. I still agree with Dennis that it's Akers' backfield, even though Henderson's been there longer. I think Akers just the more talented running back. But as we talked about on the last show when we did the Rams breakdown, Henderson was still a third-round pick, so he's got some decent draft value with him. And so I don't think he's just going to go away. I do think, obviously, he did not have a good rookie season. Some of that is they've said the Rams playbook is very complicated. I don't think he really had a complicated playbook in college. It's probably a little bit of learning all of that and everything. But coming in second year into the system, he knows a lot. I don't think he's going to take over the role, but he's going to be very prominent. So that's why I have Henderson on there. But agree with everything you guys said on Howard and Akers. So, Matt, you've got Darrell Henderson, Tariq Cohen. I know you touched on both of them just a minute ago, but any more thoughts on those two?
No, I think I covered. You might have missed Dennis and I actually did our 32 through 35 in a block.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I was in the middle of trying to fix all of my mistakes. So I guess we can just go up one more then. All right. I apologize about that. So there we go. Mark Ingram and Darius Geis for me. So did you guys get to – I didn't hear you say anything about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So is that where we want to pick back up to me not being behind anymore?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, why do you guys hate Ronald Jones? Because you see him up there.
I guess you could only say
like you
I mean, Dennis
me,
is like only one spot below you.
You tricked me into this. I feel like this has happened.
I love Ronald Jones. I told you he's gonna be phenomenal running back for another team. I don't think he's gonna be with Tampa Bay much longer. But I think I love Keyshawn Vaughn, and I think he's a better pass catcher than Ronald Jones. And for that, I think he's gonna be on the field.
I think everybody thinks that. But
I knew that was coming.
My hesitation is just with this offseason being kind of chunked, and the more that they're eradicating actual game reps and snaps. I mean, if you looked at the Players Association, what they are asking for from training camp, it's like 3 days medical tests, and then 3 weeks they call acclimation, where it kind of talks about running, drills and stretching, and then a couple weeks of practices, some in pads, and then we're going to start the season. It makes me nervous for these rookies getting on there. One of the biggest things that always seems too is for a lot of rookies trying to pick up their assignments in passing game, and all it takes is for your important veteran quarterback to get laid out once because the dude missed an assignment for him to not get back in there until he shows you he's significantly improved. I remember when I was watching Denver a few years ago, Manning got laid out. He actually went over to the sideline, clutching Monty Ball, and pushed him to the sideline and pointed to the running back he wanted to come in. Like, you can't give me this guy. He sucks. And it's not on the rookies, but that's where I'm a little more hesitant. Like, I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I think he has some talent and opportunity in that system. Dennis is right. Damian Williams isn't going away, and it wouldn't surprise me if some of these rookies don't really start to come into their own until late October and November, in which case it kind of caps where they can have a seasonal finish. So that's more where I went with looking at these.
Yeah, you are much lower than me and Dennis on Edwards-Helaire, and I thought I hated Edwards-Helaire. Like, whenever we talked about,
I don't hate him. I just the Chiefs also are a team that could win without running much at all. I mean, if you looked at some of those rushing totals for some of their backs last year, if you took out the touchdowns that they got on either a pass or a rush, you're talking about even Williams, when he was going off, sometimes had 46 yards rushing. He just had 4 touchdowns.
So I'll give my thoughts on Darius Geis really quick. Although I assume you have him ranked, Matt?
I do not.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I don't have a single Washington running back in my top 40.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. The only reason I ranked him at 30 is because I'm worried about the injuries. I think if he stays healthy, I know that they've got a million running backs on their roster, but he's by far the best one. I don't think AP necessarily goes away, but I don't think he gets nearly the workload he has the past couple of years. If Guy stays healthy, he's going to blow the 30 ranking out of the water, but I can't trust the health. So if I had to rank him, I'm going to put him there for now because I think it's almost inevitable he misses games, which sucks because he's a very talented player. Dennis, you had James White and Cam Akers there at 30 and 31. What are your thoughts on them, or do you want to keep on moving?
No, I'm good. I like I said, I think my math was a little faulty when we were talking about Darrell Henderson. I think it's more of a 65-25-20 or 65-25-10 mix there for the Chargers backfield. I think Akers' talent is going to win out over Henderson, but I think Henderson will be the change of pace guy. And then James White is he's gonna be the receiving back there, and he's in line for 100 touches or 100 targets. I'm probably a little low on him. See, where did he finish last year? He finishes at 18 last year.
Yeah.
And I'm projecting him to be roughly the same amount of targets. So I'm probably off on that, but it could be. I feel like with Cam Newton at quarterback and N'Keal Harry, Mohamed Sanu, Julian Edelman, he could see, as I talk this through, it wouldn't surprise me if he dropped down to 70 targets.
Mm-hmm.
But it's Belichick being the wild card that he is. We're just throwing shit against the wall to see what sticks when we're trying to rank the Patriots.
But I feel like it's that way every year with James White. It's like he's not. It's almost the way with a lot of the Patriots players, even like Edelman. You're looking at him on the board and you're not super excited about him, and you look at the end of the year and he was like a mid to upper tier RB2. I mean, in 2018, I'm pretty sure he was an RB1.
Yeah, he had that phenomenal year. That was the year that he broke out
up
big.
there.
Yeah. Well, so I want to ask you guys one thing on the Patriots running backs, because I almost put him at 40, but I didn't. What do we think about Damian Harris? Because last year coming in, a lot of people thought he was a really good running back coming in. There was a lot of talk this offseason, with as bad as Sony Michel was, that maybe Harris takes a step forward and starts stealing some carries. Do we think Cam Newton coming in and knowing what he can do in the rushing game has kind of killed Harris's value? What are your guys' thoughts on him real quick before we move on to 29-28?
It's certainly within the range of outcomes for Harris. I'm gonna, I guess, hedge my bet that the first round pick in Sony Michel and the comfortable guy that's been there in James White, I think it'd be different if James White was out there and making noise and causing trouble. I want more money. I deserve more money. But he's not. James White has said, hey, I've got a limited window with a winning organization, and I'm going to get as much as I can out of it, and I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability. I think White has a pretty good grip on what his role is. He doesn't look around the league and go, well, if I went over to that team, they'd give me 20 carries a game, because he recognizes that in the NFL, that's not his game. So I like White. I just think that he's going to be up. He's going to be the lead back based on targets. Harris still has to. I think it comes down to Sony being injured, and I tried to do my rankings based on, well, I'm not going to put this person here or there because of, I'm not going to move this person up because the guy ahead of him might get injured, because any of them might get injured. It's a rough sport.
Yeah.
And so you can't, I don't think you can really rank that way. So I think Harris is a quality back, and he'll make the most of his opportunities. And so it comes down to, when he gets in there, does he show himself to be as reliable as Michel and more dynamic than Michel? And if he does, then I think he might get more of an opportunity.
I mean, we forget, too, the Patriots still have Rex Burkhead, who, for as much as we'd like not to think about him, that dude comes in, gets, like, grinder carries, gets pass receptions. I don't know. It's not all of our guys have Ingram so low.
Yeah, I just put it on there, so I'm going to address it really quick. I was going to let you finish.
But, much like the Patriots, I forgot they even had Harris. So maybe he will work his way into the rotation. But the Patriots are going to use probably 5 or 6 running backs by the end of the year. So anything's possible. They're anytime you think you have it dialed in, they're looking to hose you.
Yeah, I think it's the fact that you forgot about Harris. Exactly, he's going to be the leader for fantasy points for the Patriots this year. Just you
What
watch.
was that guy that came out and
So,
had
so
one
Mark,
game where he had 4?
Yeah, that is just my ranking on Ingram. And I don't know if I even addressed it, but I'll address it now. I just think Dobbins is going to be more of a factor than some other people do, and Lamar. Now I'm just like talking around in circles.
You mean your quarterback 5 because he can't possibly have as good a rushing season?
Yeah.
And I think with Baltimore though, you've got Gus Edwards, who's shown that he can play a pretty dominant role. I feel like it's going to be a little more of a distribution of touches there now because they have guys that they like that are still there, and they added Dobbins to it, and so they're going to spread. I just feel like they're going to spread the ball around a little more. Don't get me wrong. I love Ingram.
We haven't seen the top 30. Matt might just be a Justice Hill truther.
No, I don't have Justice Hill out there either. Ingram is my highest rated Raven. And the other thing, what I was going to say is I don't think Lamar is going to rush like he did last year. I said that on the quarterback episode. But I do think they've loaded him up with so many receiving weapons as well. I think that they are planning on him trying to get him to pass more. I do think that they want to take the run away from him some. So if they continue to pass the ball, and something I think me and Dennis talked about earlier, or Matt, you were probably here too, when Dobbins got drafted by the Ravens, a lot of talk of, and at least in my opinion, if they get up in games, I would not be surprised if they pull Ingram, they pull Lamar like they did in games last season, which means Dobbins is going to be the one in there, not Ingram. I think they know that their Super Bowl window is now, and they're going to do what they can to protect their – Lamar's not old, but Ingram, an older asset, to save him for the playoffs. So I don't think he's going to have a bad season. I just don't expect them to lean on him as much as they did as early as they did in that last year, because he was, I think, a top 6 back really early on in the season. Then he got hurt and then really started to drop down the rankings. So I'm not as sold on him getting the full workload like he did last year. So for me, 28 and 29, Swift and Sony Michel. I mentioned earlier I'm much higher on Sony Michel than you guys are. I think Cam coming in there and helping it is going to help him get some more touchdowns and everything. If he stays healthy, I still think he's a really good runner. From what we saw out of him at Georgia, I can't pretend like his skill didn't go away. It's been the injury that's hurt him. If he can stay healthy, I wouldn't be surprised if they just try to run the wheels off of him. And then I actually think he might be close to being in his contract year. So just letting him go. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they run the wheels off him. And Swift, we all actually have Swift right here. So I'll give my quick thoughts. I still think he's almost like the Cam Akers situation. It's like a 60-40 split. We know Bevel likes to run the ball a lot, but Stafford does like to chuck the ball a lot as well. And I think the Lions are going to be behind more often than ahead, which means they're likely going to pass more than they run in the end. So that's why I have Swift down as low as I do. What about you guys? We'll let Dennis go. I think I keep going to Matt next. So Dennis, give us you both have Kareem Hunt and Swift here at 28-29.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah. The Lions are, I don't think Kerryon Johnson's going to go away. He's another one that he's there. Will he stay healthy? Is probably the big question when it comes to Kerryon Johnson. But here's a scenario I see playing out in Detroit. You have DeAndre Swift getting, 55% of the touches. Kerryon Johnson getting 45% of the touches. And Bo Scarborough getting 10% of the touches. And 90% of Bo Scarborough's touches are inside the 5, and he gets 12 touchdowns. And that just it's one of those vulture scenarios that is setting up.
So what you're saying is you're the Bo Scarborough homer, and we should expect to see a surprise as we go further up.
That's not what I'm saying at all. I look at that and I feel like Kerryon and Swift are going to have to score their touches from outside score their touchdowns from outside the 10, because when you got Bo Scarborough at 6'1", 240 pounds. When they get down, Matt Patricia's going to go, it's what we used to do in New England, so I'm going to put this big guy in and hammer it.
Actually, New England used to put like Deion Lewis and Rex Burkhead in it.
Well, they did it with LeGarrette Blount too. So I like Swift a lot. I think he's it comes down to who's going to stay the healthiest of Swift and Johnson. whichever one stays the healthiest is going to get the majority of the touches, but the other one isn't going to go away. You know, Swift doesn't have the injury history Johnson does. And so it's really, as much as I like Swift, I feel like the split is going to be pretty close. And then you got Matt Stafford with the weapons he has, and he's just going to be chucking the ball. Kareem Hunt, I struggle a little bit with Hunt because we've seen him be really, really good, but he doesn't run the ball near as good as Nick Chubb. As good a running back and well-rounded as Kareem Hunt is, Nick Chubb is a full-grown man. And while Nick Chubb isn't gonna, he's only gonna get token targets. It doesn't take much for Nick Chubb to take it 75 yards.
Yeah, I think for me, Hunt is probably the hardest one to rank because by talent, we've seen him before be a top 10 back, but Chubb is a great runner. The fact that they went out and got Andy Janovich at fullback makes me think that they're going to do more power eye sets. I think we saw a lot of interesting fantasy usage last year when Hunt and Chubb were on the field at the same time, taking turns blocking for each other, which doesn't seem like what Kevin Stefanski wants to do this year. And I think Cleveland could have a better passing game, and they have a lot of passing weapons too. And Chubb is very talented, so it almost feels like I'm discounting Hunt to drop him so low, but also it's hard to move him up higher, not knowing what his share is going to be with Swift. I like the idea they were talking about him being kind of more of a passing weapon, which Carry-On has not been. If you think about, in the Stafford tenure, we had a guy like Theo Riddick who was a top 20 PPR running back simply because he was a pass catcher they liked who could stay out there in kind of a free moving offense and then would get the rushing carries because he was out there. I think Swift has more of a chance of playing that role than Carry-On. I like his potential in that offense. And
going back to Sony Michel's contract, so he's going into his third year. The team hasn't. Don't they have to pick up his 5th-year option before next year, or did they have to?
Before no.
Did he get drafted
next year? Yeah, he was end of the first
round.
He
was the last. That's right. Yeah.
31st pick. Yeah.
They would have to pick it up before next season starts. Yes.
So he has 1.8 million dead cap after the 2020 season. So if they're going to run the wheels off, I don't know that if Harris shows that he's ready this season, I could see Michel being done with the Patriots after this season. They don't have to pick up his 5th year. Now, I guess 1.8, I don't know if that's without doing more research. I don't know if that's high or low for a running back.
That's pretty low. But you also got to think, as we talked about last,
high for a rookie running back on a rookie contract.
Yeah, but I mean, like altogether, like that cap hit's not big. But I do think it affects a team like New England, as we talked about on Monday's episode when they signed Cam Newton. They are hurting for money at the moment, so I would think every dollar hurts. So I'll let Dennis, you go first here. 26 through 27, 26 and 27. You've got Singletary and Mostert.
I struggle a little bit with the Bills running backs. I'm not sold on Zach Moss. I probably if I'm not sold on Zach Moss, given where I have Singletary ranked, I either need to have Moss higher because right now I have him at around 50, or I need to move Singletary up higher to accommodate where I currently have Moss. I'm going to have to dig into that a little deeper. I like Singletary, but I do think he's going to split some time. And one of the guys he's going to split time with is Josh Allen. Allen had 9 rushing touchdowns last year.
Yep.
So I don't think that much of that is going to change when you have a quarterback that only completes 52 or 53% of his passes. He's got some good weapons in Stephon Diggs and John Brown and Cole Beasley. Dawson Knox. So they may pass a little bit more, which will take some rushes away, but Allen is still going to get a good portion of rushing. He's still going to be he'll probably be top 5 in quarterback rushing yards.
To be fair, Josh Allen completed 58.8% of his passes last year. He did attempt to take a step forward, but he ran for 8 touchdowns and 631 yards as a rookie, and 9 touchdowns and 510 yards last year. So I think that's the real problem, as Dennis noted. He's their preferred goal line back, and then having a guy like Moss, who's also going to be a goal line back, I think that's the bummer thing for Singletary. I'm a little higher, but not a ton higher. Mine, I have James White, which he'll probably outperform that 27th place finish, as he has every year for the last 2 or 3 years, and then the running back who shall not be named.
You're pretty high on him.
So Dennis,
look, if I was ranking with my heart, he would be nowhere on the sheet. But if we're ranking honestly, it's doing everyone a disservice not to have him somewhere in there.
So to answer Mark's question about Raheem Mostert, for me it comes down to I haven't seen it consistently with Mostert. I haven't seen it consistently with Coleman. I mean, we've seen it with Jeff Wilson, so and they've got Jerick McKinnon. I think I said last week on the show, if they gave him 240 carries, Kyle Juszczyk could probably rush for 1,200 or 1,400 yards. So it's as much a nod to I'm not 100%. I think Mostert's going to start as the lead back, and the expectation is that he'll continue in that role. But I think Jimmy G needs to take a little bit of a step in the passing game, and they've been trying to get him some more weapons there. Overall, I wouldn't it wouldn't surprise me if I'm too low on Mostert and Coleman, but I'm sitting here, over these last 20 players or so, thinking I probably should have everybody as a top 12 back.
Yeah, these last ones were hard for me. Like so I've got Melvin Gordon at 26 and Bell at 27. It was hard for me to put Bell down this low, but I kept looking at it. I just can't justify moving him up. For Gordon, I have Lindsey very close to him as well. Matt and I think, are both kind of on the same agreement that I think it's going to be more split than others do. I know that they paid Melvin Gordon, but I don't see that being an 80-20 or even 7-30. I think it's going to be more of a 50-50 split. Lindsey is a lot better receiver than he's given credit for. I know Melvin Gordon's caught a ton of passes. He's definitely improved that part of his game coming into the NFL. So I think he'll get his own work as well. But I think Lindsey already knows the offense. Well, I guess they technically have a new offensive coordinator there, don't they, Matt?
Yes, Pat Shurmur is in there. But, if you go to my Twitter feed today, you saw QB1 throwing passes to RB1 today out there, Lindsey and Locke, just in lockstep. You don't see Voldemort out there.
Yeah. But so I think it's going to be more of a 50-50 split, and I believe in Lindsey. I've believed in him since he came out into the draft. So I've got him just a little bit higher. Bell, I just think he's getting older. I don't believe in that Jets offense. I wanted to move him up higher because he's still probably one of the best overall backs that I've ever seen play. Just what he can do in the receiving game, runner. He was very elusive with Pittsburgh. I just don't see the Jets having that good of an offensive line, and I just don't trust Adam Gase. So I had to drop him down here, which is unfortunate because, as I mentioned, he's been a stud for a very long time. So next up, as you guys can see, I got Phillip Lindsay and then Devin Singletary. Like I said, Lindsay and Melvin Gordon, they're very close to me. I imagine it's going to be a 50-50 split. I'm going with my guy Lindsay, mostly also because you can get him so much cheaper than Melvin Gordon in drafts as well. And I think that at the end of the day, even if Melvin Gordon does outscore Lindsay, I don't think it's going to be by much. So I'm keeping Lindsay there in my 2020 rankings. Singletary, I don't necessarily disagree with Dennis was saying. Obviously, we're not that separated, just a couple spots on Singletary. I'm not as worried about Zach Moss. I know there's some people that believe he's, the next coming of Jim Brown, it seems, when they talk about him on Twitter. Yeah, I don't believe Zach Moss is that good. I think Allen is more the one who's going to vulture touchdowns from Singletary. But we saw it so much from Singletary last year before he got hurt, how elusive he is, how easy it is for him to make defenders miss. He had a lot of big plays. I think that he's going to be able to score some long touchdowns. So even if they do get down into the red zone and Allen, vultures 4 or 5 from him, still have him as an RB2s. I think the yards he can get, and I think he's a better receiver than Zach Moss as well. I don't know if Allen will dump off a lot to him, but I still think he can get some work in that area. So Singletary, I wish I could move him higher, but Allen and a little bit of Moss have him down here for me. Matt, you've got Phillip Lindsay and Devin Singletary as well as your 24 and 25, but flipped. So tell us about your two guys, or your thoughts on them, I guess.
I mean, same kind of thing as what we talked about already with Singletary. I like him. I like the talent, but they obviously are going to share, and they're still sharing with their quarterback. And then Lindsey and Gordon, I have them pretty close, kind of like you do. I have them, I think we have them a little bit further back than Dennis, if I recall, had them both pretty close too, but a little higher up. I think they'll have a pretty robust passing game. Fringe RB2 is what I've been going if they split the carries.
All right, Dennis, you've got Mark Ingram at 24 and Montgomery at 25. Tell us about those two guys.
With Ingram, we talked about a little bit earlier that I just feel like they're going to spread the touches around an awful lot with those backs. Lamar's still going to get some, and I think Lamar is going to pass the ball more this season. So, they were I think he had 440 attempts, the Ravens, last year, something really low. I think that goes up a little bit, and that cuts into the rushing attempts. David Montgomery, he's probably the one guy in this area. As a Montgomery truther, I kept looking for how to move him up higher. I looked and I looked and I looked. What he's got going for him is they didn't add anything. It's him and Cohen. That's that rushing game. But it's also Trubisky and Nick Foles at quarterback. And so I'm not super high on offensive efficiency there in Chicago. I know Kyle Long is retired and he's battled through injuries the past few seasons and maybe wasn't quite up to what he had been previously. But I like Montgomery. I want him to do well. I think he's displayed some good receiving chops, but it's a situation where I just think they're going to suffer. He's going to suffer with volume and efficiency.
All right, so let's check out 23 and 22 for all of us. I'll let you go first, Dennis. You got Phillip Lindsay and Jonathan Taylor. So why do you have and that's not far off on us with Lindsay, but Jonathan Taylor. Oh, both of you have Jonathan Taylor in there. Man, my rank of Jonathan Taylor is going to surprise some people. Go ahead, Dennis.
Well, like I said earlier, Marlon Mack isn't just going to go away, and neither is Nyheim Hines. And I like Taylor. I think Taylor is the more talented of those backs. He's going to need to – he's going to be splitting some time. He's got a great offense, but he's got a veteran quarterback that's going to check them in and out of plays, and it could affect there's going to be an effect as to what play is called versus what play is ran when Phillip Rivers goes out there. I think there's still, Phillip Rivers is a gunslinger, and he may not, he may be back, he may be down to a pop gun now, but he still loves to fire that son of a gun off. And and when you've got weapons now like T.Y. Hilton, Paris Campbell, Michael Pittman, he's got a good set of receivers now. So I like Taylor. I think Taylor is going to lead the Colts in rushing, but I'm just not sold yet with these rookies. As I look at my Clyde Edwards-Helaire ranking, I'm not quite as comfortable with that as I was when I ranked it.
Yeah, I've got it pretty high too. Matt, you've got Jonathan Taylor there at 22 and then Mark Ingram at 23. Your thoughts on Taylor, and then why are you higher on – well, again, I say higher than Mark Ingram. Dennis is right there with you. So just your thoughts really quick on Mark Ingram.
I mean, Mark Ingram was RB8 in standard, 11 in PPR last year, so having him down at 23 does, signify quite a slide back from where he was. I just think they are a big running team, and he's going to be the guy that gets the lion's share of carries out of that group, even if you are sharing, even if Lamar is running. We've seen room for success, so having him as a low-end RB2 makes some sense to me. Same thing with Taylor. I agree with Dennis. I don't think Nyheim Hines and Marlon Mack are going away. We've seen, too, that Rivers is the kind of quarterback that likes to pass to running backs. We don't know how much of that role is going to, that Taylor's going to be taking. I like him. He's my highest ranked, I believe, rookie running back in here. So, I think he's going to have a good season, but I'm probably more cautious than either of you about the rookies in general. I think it's going to be a tough adjustment, which is heartbreaking because we really like this class, and I think they're going to be great long term. But this is just not a fair launch into the NFL.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think for me, the reason, you'll see my rookie wide receiver rankings are not going to be nearly as high. The reason I'm not as worried about the rookie running backs, I just feel like it's an easier transition. It's not as – you don't have to learn as much, I think, going from the running back position in college to the running back position in the NFL. I feel like it's not as hard a transition. And I think that's why running backs produce so much quicker when they come to the NFL compared to wide receivers, tight ends. So I've got both Taylor and CEH a lot higher. I'll be honest, a lot higher than at least you guys have Taylor. So I've got Hunt here at 23. I do agree with you guys on the thought about him not being as good of a runner as Nick Chubb. I agree with something you said, Matt. We talked about it beforehand. I thought it was a great move for them bringing in Janovich. I think the fact that they had Chubb and Hunt blocking for each other last year was just stupid. Neither one of them, that's not their job, and I think it just kind of went badly. Having a guy like Janovich, who is a great, obviously being the Philip Lindsay fan that I am, I watched a lot of Broncos games last year. They always play in the afternoon. I pay so much attention to the Browns games and earlier. Janovich, I think, is going to be a great addition to that thing. I think that's what's going to keep Hunt off the field at times. I understand they're talking about putting him in the slot and all that other nonsense. I just don't think it happens. I think he's mostly going to be used kind of like Alexander Madison was for Minnesota, and he's going to come in and spell Chubb when Chubb gets tired or when they want to pull Chubb out for different packages, and I just don't think that's going to be as much as other people do. I understand Hunt's a former 1,000-yard back. He's a great receiver out of the backfield. Chubb's the better runner. He's not as good as a receiver, but he's just the better runner. And I think they're going to leave Chubb out there, and having a guy like Janovich who's going to help block and get him just that couple more extra yards or maybe plug up that one other defender and allow that hole to open up to have Chubb hit. We've seen it since his rookie year and last year. When Chubb hits a hole and he can start getting by defenders, he's a lot faster than people think. So I'm just not sold that Hunt's going to be on the field and as productive as others, but I still have him as an RB2, mostly because I said he was going to be an RB2 on the Browns podcast, and I can't backtrack off that. So I didn't want to move him any higher, so I left him there at 23. Chris Carson, the only reason I have him down here, a lot of fumble issues last year, and I'm still a little worried about the injury. I know they're saying he should be fine coming into the season, but a broken hip's a broken hip. I cannot ever, again, mostly you hear about that happening to older people. And they talk about how hard it is to recover. Chris Carson's still a young man. Still, I can't imagine it's going to be an easy thing to recover from. I think that's why they brought in Hyde as well, to just kind of help out Carson. Wouldn't be surprised. I know we talked about in the Seattle Seahawks episode, if maybe it takes 3 or 4 weeks for Carson to kind of get going, and Hyde's the guy, and that's going to take away from some of Carson's production. So that's why I dropped him down here to 22. So let's finish out with our last two guys we're going to talk about on this episode. I've got Mostert and David Johnson. We all have David Johnson at 21, so that is interesting. So let's start with him first. Let's just get this out of the way. I think David Johnson's going to be good this year. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be quite as good a rusher because I just don't trust that offensive line at all from Houston. But I think Watson will check down to him a little bit. There's obviously the rumors about AB, which we can kind of discuss here at the end of the episode. I think Watson will definitely check down to Johnson, and we saw that in Arizona. Johnson, when he was able to get the ball receiving-wise, he was able to do a lot with it. I think he can bounce back. If he can stay healthy, RB2 season for him I don't think is out of the range of possibility, so I've got him here at 21. Matt, what are your thoughts on Johnson?
Yeah, something similar. I mean, they obviously didn't trade DeAndre Hopkins for him not to use him. And we saw, Carlos Hyde had a 1,000-yard season there last year with not a great offensive line. I think we think David Johnson's a little better than him. He has the passing work. It's modest expectation, but they invested in him. Obviously, he's got to be a big part of what they are hoping to do.
Yeah, I go back and forth between David Johnson's washed and David Johnson comeback player of the year. It's just one of those situations where if you look at last season, his first 6 games when he was healthy, he looked good. Yeah. And he was trending at that point at, I think, RB5 or RB6. And then he got injured, and it just all kind of fell to hell for him. He never really got back from that injury. He looked sluggish when he did get back. If he's coming into the season and he's healthy, I do think there's a legitimate question as to whether or not he can stay healthy. If he does, though, that even without DeAndre Hopkins, they've got serviceable wide receivers, and they've got one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. So it comes down to that offensive line and whether or not DJ stays healthy.
Agreed. So you guys both have James Conner at 20.
Hey, question.
So Dennis, why Conner? Yeah.
It seems weird to start next week's show and do 19-1. Shouldn't we stop at 21?
No, I want to do 20. I like it better that way. Well, you know what? No, I don't want to end on an odd number.
I'm the captain now.
Yeah.
I'm the captain. I'm the captain. Yeah.
We already showed 20, so
yeah, I already showed. Okay, fine. What we'll do? It's a tease. We'll talk about it doesn't matter to me. We can talk about it. We can not talk about it. It's up to you guys.
Let's talk about David Njoku's trade request.
Yeah, I just want to know who
Raheem Mostert. I thought we did. We're not even at an hour yet with all of my technical difficulties at the beginning of this episode. So it's up to you guys. We can. I'll tease it. We can save it for next week. So I've got Reemon at 20. Reemon, my goodness. I got Reemon Davis on the brand. Love the guy. Raheem Mostert for the 49ers at 20. Matt and Dennis both have James Conner. We'll kick off next week's episode with that. So let's finish out with some of the news. I do want to touch on something, Matt, you mentioned earlier. We obviously, if we would have done the podcast yesterday, we would have talked about it because it was kind of big news earlier in the week. NFL has already come out and said they're canceling 2 preseason games. I don't know if you said it or not. Did you say that you think they will cancel all the preseason games? Because I do. I don't think
the NFL Players Association voted today to recommend 0 preseason games. So the NFL said they will take it under advisement. But you have to think.
I don't think we're going to see any preseason games. I think we might see like one. But I think the first game we will see will be week 1 of the NFL. I think they're going to do everything they can to kind of keep as much contained and all that other stuff moving into the season. And we'll see that first game against Houston and which that should be a game.
September 10th.
Houston and Kansas City.
So when I owned my restaurant, it was well known that if you said something to me and I said, I'll take it under advisement, that what that really meant was go fuck yourself.
That's well known about the NFL as well. That's what the only moment of pause. So, we could have a prop bet. Which do we see first, a preseason game or a new name for the Washington professional football team?
Oh, man, that took a quick turn. I'm not going to lie. I was going to bring that up. I mean, because we've heard him say this before. I want to say I was talking to somebody about it on Facebook. Like Daniel Snyder a couple years ago.
Here's what we heard. FedEx went, see this check? Fix it or we're not sending it.
Nike dropped all their merch out of the shop, which means if you wanted to buy a Haskins jersey or Chase Young jersey, you're sort of SOL right
So does that mean Nike's going to stop having their shoes made by 12-year-olds that work for $3 a month?
Look, Dennis,
No,
we
that wasn't
focus
brought
on
into
your
question.
problems so that you forget about
Yeah,
our
exactly.
problems.
No, I would think Washington's name change is going to come very quickly. I would imagine it's going to be before any game is played, because I think with FedEx and Nike doing what they did, I think the fact that they already saying that, like, it was what Dan Snyder comes out with a statement, and then not even an hour later, it's like the day may be changed before the 2020 season even starts. It's going to change before the 2020 season starts. So I think they want to have the new name in place, so I can figure out how they're going to do the jersey, so all that stuff can kick off. I mean, in my opinion, if you're just looking at it from a capitalist side here, which I would think Dan Snyder wants to make as much money as possible, look at all the money you're going to make with the new jerseys, new T-shirts, new hats, all that other crap.
Well,
I mean, his argument in it's going to ruin the history of the Redskins franchise is just the dumbest shit I've ever heard. So.
People think Nike
Cleveland
pulled all
Browns
that
fan
stuff.
are like, fuck that shit.
People think Nike pulled all that stuff maybe to send them a message, but what if they had just already been told, hey, we're going to change, and they're starting production? It's very possible. I mean, they were really quick to say, hey, we've been talking about this for a while, and the NFL's like, we've been talking about this for over a month. I wouldn't be surprised if they've been talking about it for over a month, because you can't go give $250 million to all these causes and watch the protest marches around our country and not think, hey, we're going to be a target.
Yeah. I mean, you could. Some of those rich dudes are pretty self-unaware.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I heard a big thing about it today on the radio about Jerry Jones, that he's one of the owners that has not said a single word about that stuff. And they were talking about, they think a lot of that is because he doesn't necessarily agree with the things that are going on. So he knows just to keep his mouth shut, which is like the first time in history.
No, those are the people that watch the Dallas Cowboys season of All or Nothing. Because let me tell you, all the goodwill that you felt during the season when he came out and dealt with his players, when they actually have the behind the scenes and you're listening to the callous discussion of that among the Cowboys coaches and ownership, I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that at all. Knowing just the very little I've heard about Jerry Jones, that doesn't surprise me at all. So, two more rumors we'll address before we get out of here. We'll do the AB one first, because I feel like that's going to be quicker. There are rumors that he's going to Houston. If that happens, good fit, bad fit, what do you guys think?
I don't think it's even a legit. I think it's complete bullshit.
A train wreck.
Would you rather have the drama caused by Nuke Hopkins or the drama caused by Antonio Brown? I mean, if they got rid of Nuke Hopkins because he was causing too much drama, don't tell me they're going to bring in Antonio Brown. That I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, they're going to do that at the same time that they trade Watson for Newton straight up, so that Watson can get out and get to New England, and Cap's going to be looking around like, wait, what happened to me? They already shot their shot with David Johnson, Brandon Cooks. I mean, it seems too much.
The only reason I will say it doesn't seem crazy is because Bill O'Brien, the GM, is a complete idiot. And so that's why I don't think that would be out of the realm of possibilities. I agree with you that it'd be stupid to trade Nuke Hopkins for Antonio Brown, especially with the way Nuke was. He's one of the best receivers. I think up until he went to Arizona, you never heard anything from him. He goes to Arizona and he started talking about, and he wasn't even bad. It was just, I think I'm the best wide receiver in the league. Not a bad thing to say. Most of us agree with you. So I don't think it's crazy. I do think maybe Bill O'Brien feels that his seat is getting hotter and hotter by the day, and he needs to do something to bring him. Maybe he doesn't believe Brandon Cooks is quite the wide receiver he thought he was when he made the trade. You bring in a guy like AB, you're going to have to manage the drama and everything, but he's still, if he can be what he was close to in Pittsburgh, you're bringing back some number one. You're giving Watson a viable target. He wants to win games. So I don't think it's necessarily complete bullshit, but I guess I would say it's a 50-50 shot. I wouldn't throw it at – there's too many people talking about it for it not to be some kind of – when there's smoke, there's fire. There's got to be some truth behind the rumor.
But, I mean, there's big rumors that he's going to Seattle, too, where at least we've seen him run
that's because he was working out with Wilson, yeah.
I think that would be equally as dumb.
I think that Seattle is dumber than Houston, at least for fantasy. I mean, you got Tyler Lockett and Metcalf. Like, Brown doesn't fit in there, in my opinion. Where if he goes to Houston, I think he's easily the one. I think he could beat out Brandon Cooks in a heartbeat.
He's kind of washed up.
Yeah, you're underestimating Cooks a little bit. I mean, the guy had quite
like
a
Robert
stretch before they wrote him off in Los Angeles and wrote him out of their game plan last year.
Yeah. David Njoku, right before we started recording, requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns.
He also wants to go to Houston.
Yeah, not that surprising, really, with everything going on there. The rumor was that Dallas was the top spot. Then a report literally just came out about, 2 minutes ago? Cowboys have no interest in David Njoku. So I don't know what to believe.
That means they're very interested.
Yeah.
Cowboys have no salary cap for David Njoku.
I tweeted out, I think that would be a great move for the Cowboys because it would make Amari Cooper's hands look elite with the way that David Njoku drops balls. So I do think it'd be a great move by them. But
I see you've begun the process of emotionally detaching yourself from Njoku and his time.
No, I love
Njoku.
I don't want him to go. I will still root for him if he goes to Dallas. I have no problem with him wanting to leave. I thought, I've made it very well known. I thought he looked really good earlier in the season. It's all kind of on Baker on why he got hurt. He threw that ball way too high, and Njoku went up for it, fell down, broke his wrist. I mean, he got undercut. It is what it is. I have no ill will toward Njoku. He goes to the Cowboys. I root for Zeke. I'll root for CeeDee Lamb. Just don't root for Amari Cooper. That's all. But
so
I think
what do you think is
somewhere?
What do you think is a fair price for Njoku then? What's a team going to have to pay to get him?
I really wish they would have done that trade of a second-round pick and David Njoku for fucking Trent Williams. No, I take that back. No, I still take that. Actually, if they would have got Trent Williams, I love Jedrick Wills from everything I've heard from Joe Thomas, but could have gone a different route there at 10. I don't know. I mean, I don't think we've seen enough out of Njoku to be able to ask that much back from him. I think maybe a second or third round pick. I mean, if they could get a decent linebacker, I mean, I like the linebacker core that they're building. But outside of Mac Wilson, who didn't even show that much last year, I don't love you're going to be asking a lot from those young guys to step up big. Maybe if they could bring back a linebacker or, I mean, I don't really know. We don't need running back, don't need offensive line at this point. Backup quarterback, wide receiver, it's really just linebacker, in my opinion, is their biggest weakness. So I really don't know. I think maybe a third-round pick is the best you can ask. I don't know if you could get a second or first for Njoku.
I don't even think you can get a third. I mean,
I think asking for a third is going to get you counters, but I don't think anybody's going to give a third for him. They're going to be like, yeah, you liked him so much you went out and signed a high-price free agent.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that the move from the Browns is to keep him. I mean, he's super athletic, and maybe he puts it together. I don't know where he goes. Washington has a need at tight end. But
you probably have a better shot at getting a third, fourth, fifth round pick into the season for a contender that gets screwed at tight end.
So I agree with you. I don't think the Browns want to move him, but I'm just looking through all the stuff. Drew Rosenhaus has pretty much come out and said that he's not going to play if he doesn't get a trade, and they want it done before training camp. So
he doesn't play. His contract doesn't toll. He has no leverage whatsoever.
Yeah, he misses out on an accrued year. He'll stay on that rookie deal another year. I mean, that's a bluff you're going to call 10 times out of 10 if you're an NFL team.
Yeah, but I mean, the one thing it is a different front office. So the one thing I will say is this did not go over well last year when Duke Johnson came in and requested a trade. Now, granted, it was John Dorsey, different front office, but the team did, and we saw what Baker did when he came out as you don't want to be here, then go kind of thing. So I don't think with all the other issues we have coming into this offseason, I honestly don't think the Browns want to come in with another distraction. And if Njoku wants out, that's a distraction. So I do think there's a better chance they move him than keep him, unless they can kind of get him to buy into what Stefanski wants to do. Because I'm sure he is bothered by the fact they brought in Hooper. I still think they're going to use him. He traditionally uses 2 tight end sets, so I didn't think it was a bad move for Njoku. But if he doesn't want to be there, whatever. I mean, I saw Washington, Dallas, Jets. I was trying to remember some of the other teams that brought up that would have interest, but I couldn't get it to pull up on my phone. I think the Jets, I don't know why he'd want to go to the Jets. I mean, Griffin showed a lot. I still think Herndon's a good tight end, but regardless, it'll be interesting.
Not the highest volume pass offense, so job, David. Maybe he wants to play running back.
Houston could use a tight end. They had the Gary Barnage breakout from Darren Fells, but unproven Kahale Waring, Jordan Thomas, Jordan Akins. So, they don't have. What about Arizona?
Do they even have a tight end? I thought
an athletic tight end.
Part of.
Yeah, they don't use a tight end a ton, but the type of tight end they would use would be athletic and fast.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's I hope he takes the iron sharpens iron approach, steps up to the challenge with the Austin Hooper. I called it a couple of weeks ago. I think Njoku outscores Hooper, so I'm going to stick to that. I think if he goes to another team, he definitely outscores Hooper.
What about New England, a team that doesn't really have a clear picture at tight end, but now has a quarterback that likes throwing to tight ends?
The only reason I don't know if you'd go to there, he's not a very good run blocker, and Bill's going to want you to be able to do that. I mean, that's the one thing you say about Rob Hans.
They have a bunch of other guys. You rotate them into block.
I mean, maybe. I don't think it's a bad fit. I just pulled this up. I didn't even realize Field Yates wrote an article apparently about how the Browns should trade him before this even brought up. And he brought up that one of the trades that would make sense that was discussed, a 2021 second rounder and Njoku to the Jaguars for Ngakoue for a year. I would do that in a heartbeat. Have Ngakoue, you've got Garrett, and then why am I forgetting his name right now? Garrett's not disgruntled.
Oh, no, Olivier Vernon.
Ngakoue and Njoku.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But, I mean, you bring over Ngakoue for a year. You've got Garrett.
And swap your disgruntled players, and they're happier. Olivier Vernon.
Exactly. You get him for a year. I mean, I'd be terrifying. We thought this was going to be a terrifying defensive line last year, bringing over Richardson to pair with Garrett and what's his name again, Dennis? Vernon. There we go.
Olivier Vernon.
Man, that'd be nasty for a year. Browns aren't going to win the Super Bowl, but fuck, it'd be fun to watch for at least a year. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But we'll call it there. That is all the news that we've got for that. We will be back on Monday with Matt's beloved AFC West. We'll be talking about the Patriots. My God, this has been a horrible episode.
So you just need to start Friday over.
Kansas City Chiefs, not the New England Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos on Monday. We will have, I think, the top of the rest of the running backs on Thursday.
So before we go, we wanted to we opened our contest for the Redraft League about posting a review. We want to welcome Earl of Dynasty. He posted a great review. We put it out to him, and he officially joined the league this morning. So welcome to the Redraft League. And I touched on it briefly at the beginning when you decided to ditch us for your frozen image, and Dennis and I were left alone with our thoughts.
We had to wing it.
Yeah, if you would like a shot at getting in, just DM me on Twitter at Nighthawk7734 with your best guess about what true patriotic American Joey Chestnut will consume in terms of hot dogs tomorrow at noon Eastern. So you got to get it to me by 11:30 a.m. Eastern because the competition begins noon Eastern on ESPN.
All right, that will do us. I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but it will be in the podcast version. We are part of the Drive-In Podcast Network now. I completely messed it up. That was also probably because I just completely whiffed dead at the beginning of the episode. So we're glad to be a part of that. Check out all those. They've got a bunch of great podcasts, pop culture, movies, music. We're thrilled to be a part of it. It's going to be a great ride here. So check them out as well. They'll be retweeting all of our stuff. And that's for that. Everybody have a safe and happy 4th of July and a good weekend. And we will see you guys again on Monday.